Namaste. As you all might know, today is the 1007th birth anniversary of Bhagavat Ramanujar. In order to celebrate this, I would like to sing a small song praising him, which is composed by Embar. Before that, I would like to give a short introduction on who Embar is and why he is so important. Embar's original birth name was Govinda Perumal and he was also called Govinda Bhattar. He is supposed to be Ramanujar's cousin, which means Ramanujar's mother and his mother were own sisters. He was born to Kamala Nayana Bhattar and Devi Nachiyar in the town of Maduramangalam, which is near Sri Perumbudur. He was born on the nakshatram of Thai Punar Pusam. At a young age, both Embar and Ramanujar did all of the necessary samskaras and later started studying Vedanta from Yadava Prakashar. However, Yadava Prakashar was very jealous of Ramanujar's immense knowledge and the fact that at some points Ramanujar even knew more than he did. So, when him and his students were planning to go to Varanasi for a pilgrimage, he instructed 4 or 5 students to drown Ramanujar in the Ganga. Govinda Perumal overheard this plan and he immediately rushed to the Ganga seashore in the early morning, and in the wet sand he wrote a message to Ramanujar saying, "Please run from here, it is very unsafe for you." Luckily, Ramanujar saw the message and he knew that if Embar is saying something, there has to be, a reason for it. He trusted Embar. So he followed the advice and he ran away from there. And that is how Embar saved Ramanujar's life. This is one example of how compassionate he is. What happened to Embar after that is when he was in the Ganga, he suddenly happened to find a Shivalinga in his hand. What he understood from this was that Shiva Peruman was calling him and he decided to convert to Shaivism. But what had actually happened was that this was a plan by another Shiva Bhakta who had placed the Shivalingam in his hand. Anyway, Embar became a Shiva Bhakta. He went to Kalahasti, which is near Tirupati, and he started doing puja for Shiva Perumal there. Ramanujar got to know of this and he was very saddened and he wanted Embar to come back to the Vaishnava Sampradaya. So he asked Periya Thirumalai Nambi, who is both of their uncles, to go to Kalahasti and convince Embar again. Periya Thirumalai Nambi goes to Kalahasti and what he does is, when Embar is doing puja to Shiva Peruman, he hides behind and he starts narrating stories of how Embar was as a child. He says, there was once a very great Narayana Bhakta called Govinda Perumal, which is Embar's birth name, and that he and Ramanujar were always together and they always were thinking of Perumal and they used to do a lot of puja to Narayana. Hearing all of this, Embar becomes very emotional and he realizes, oh, how could I have just left Narayana like this? I just forgot about him. This is not right. And he becomes a Vaishnavite again. He then becomes Periya Thirumalai Nambi's Sishya and he stays with him for quite a few years. But then one day Ramanujar asks Thirumalai Nambi to send Embar with him. Periya Thirumalai Nambi is very happy and he agrees. And Embar goes with Ramanujar. However, at first he starts missing his guru, and when Ramanujar notices this, he says, it's okay, you go back to Tirupati, you spend some time with Thirumalai Nambi and then you come back here. So Embar happily goes, but when Periya Thirumalai Nambi sees him coming, he just shuts the door in his face, and without telling him directly, he tells his wife, "How can you feed a sold cow?" Which implies that, he's telling Embar, you and I are not Guru Sishya anymore. I have no connection with you, hence you cannot come back here. You have to go with Ramanujar. Embar understands his mistake and ever since that day, it is said that he never ever left Ramanujar's side. This is what grants him his Acharya name. Once he gained sannyasa ashrama, that is when he got the name Embar. And if you notice, it is actually a shadow of the name Emperumanar, which is a name for Ramanujar. So Embar and Ramanujar are always together, and once they hear of Kuratalvan's two sons being born, Parashara Bhattar and Vedavyasa Bhattar, Ramanujar requests Embar to go escort the children and bring them to him. So Embar goes, and he wanted to make sure that the children would be safe on the way to the ashrama. So to do that, he chants the Maha Mantra into both of their ears at the same time. And then they go to Ramanujar, and when Embar tells Ramanujar this, he becomes very happy and he says, "Since you are the first one to teach them the Maha Mantra, you should only become their Acharya." Embar agrees, and then he takes in both Parashara Bhattar and Vedavyasa Bhattar as his students, and both of them go on to become great Acharyas of their own. Soon after, Ramanujar leaves the mortal world and goes to Vaikunta. And when this happens, Embar and his two Sishyas go to Srirangam and they start propagating the Vaishnava Sampradaya there. However, Embar could not bear to be separated from Ramanujar for very long. So, a few years later, he also goes to Vaikunta and attains Mukti. There is another incident unrelated to this, a small incident which shows Embar's karunya or compassion. One day what happened was, Embar and Ramanujar were just walking and Ramanujar was saying something. Then he turns and then he notices that Embar is not beside him anymore, but he's somewhere in the distance and he seems to be talking to a snake. So Ramanujar waits, and once Embar comes back, he asks what happened there. So Embar says, "I saw a snake there and it had a thorn in its tongue and it seemed to keep constantly looking at me like it was asking for help. So I knew it could be poisonous, but I couldn't just leave without helping it." So what he does is he wraps the pattu vastram, a silk cloth, around his hand, and he just plucks the thorn from the snake's tongue. Thankfully, he was not poisoned, but why this is so impactful is that Embar fully knew he could get hurt to the extent of even his life going away, but he was still so selfless that he wanted to help the snake. Ramanujar hears this and he becomes very happy, and he just hugs Embar and he says, "How can somebody be more compassionate than you in this world?" So this is a short tale about Embar, and now I would like to sing Parpamena, which is a song written by Embar in praise of Ramanujar. பற்பமெனத்திகள் பைங்கழல் உந்தன் பல்லவமே விரலும், பற்பமெனத்திகள் பைங்கழல் உந்தன் பல்லவமே விரலும், பாவனமாகிய பைந்துவராடை பதிந்த மருங்கழகும், பாவனமாகிய பைந்துவராடை பதிந்த மருங்கழகும், முப்பொறி நூலோடு முன்கையில் ஏந்திய முக்கோல் தன்னழகும், முப்பொறி நூலோடு முன்கையில் ஏந்திய முக்கோல் தன்னழகும், முன்னவ தந்திடு மொழிக நிறைந்திடு முருவ நிலாவழகும், முன்னவ தந்திடு மொழிக நிறைந்திடு முருவ நிலாவழகும், சகமகம கம பமப மபனி பனி பனி சனி சா, சகமகம மம கம பமப pa pa ma pa ni ni pa ni sa 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 ga ma pa ma pa ma pa ni pa ni pa ni sa ni sa ga ma sa ni sa ni pa sa ni pa ma ga sa ga ma pa ni sa sa ni pa ma ga sa ga ma கற்பகமே விழி கருணை பொழிந்திடு கமல கண்ணழகும் கற்பகமே விழி கருணை பொழிந்திடு கமல கண்ணழகும் காரிசுதன் கழல் சூடிய முடியும் கனல சிகை முடியும் காரிசுதன் கழல் சூடிய முடியும் கனல சிகை முடியும் எப்பொழுதும் எதிராசன் வடிவழகு என் இதயத்துளதால் எப்பொழுதும் எதிராசன் வடிவழகு என் இதயத்துளதால் இல்லை எனக்கெதிர் இல்லை எனக்கெதிர் இல்லை எனக்கெதிரே இல்லை எனக்கெதிர் இல்லை எனக்கெதிர் இல்லை எனக்கெதிரே இல்லை எனக்கெதிரே இல்லை